Hello and welcome to Mathematics with Mr. Kumalo. If it's your first time here, hit the subscribe button and that notification bell so you get notified when I drop the next video. In today's video, we are looking at the properties of numbers, mainly the commutative property of numbers, the associative property of numbers, as well as the distributive property of numbers. Without wasting time, let's take a look. The first property of number we are going to look at is the commutative property. So what is the commutative property, or what is the commutative property all about? So the commutative property, first of all, applies to addition and multiplication. This property of number says to us, when we add or multiply numbers, we can swap them around and the answer will still be around. So this property of numbers is all about the swapping of numbers. So you can swap numbers around when you add or multiply and you will still get to the same answer. So this does not apply to subtraction and division, but only applies to addition and multiplication. So to explain it further using variables and numbers, a plus b is equals to b plus a. So we can swap the numbers around and still get to the same answer. So basically, as an example, this would be 1 plus 2 is still the same as 2 plus 1, which will give us 3. So when we add numbers, we can swap them around and still get the same answer. Same as with multiplication, a multiplied by b is equals to b multiplied by a. So when we multiply numbers, we can swap them around and still get to the same answer. As an argument, 1 multiplied by 2 is equals to, now we swap the numbers around, 2 multiplied by 1, which is equals to 2, because 1 multiplied by 2 is 2, and 2 multiplied by 1 will also equal to 2. And that is the commutative property. When you add or multiply numbers, you can swap them around and you will still get to the same answer. So the commutative property will not apply to division or to subtraction, because if you were, for argument's sake, to say 1 minus 2, which will give you a negative answer, that will not equal to 2 minus 1, which will give you a positive number. All right, as well as with division, 1 divided by 2 is not equal to 2 divided by 1. So if you swap numbers around when you are subtracting or dividing, the answer becomes different. But when you're adding or multiplying numbers, then you can swap the numbers around and you can still get to the same answer. Associative property of numbers is also applying to addition and multiplication. So it also applies to addition and multiplication. In other words, when you are adding or multiplying numbers, this refers to the grouping of numbers when you are adding or multiplying. And according to this property of numbers, if you are adding or multiplying numbers, you can group them in anyhow. If you are adding 2, 3, 4 or more numbers, or if you are multiplying 2, 3 or more numbers, you can group them anyhow. You can start anyway and the answer will still be the same. So again, using variables, a plus b plus c equals to a plus b plus c. So when we add numbers, whether we start here or whether we start over here, so this is grouping, it doesn't matter where we start, we will still get to the same answer. So let us assume now, using numbers again, we having 1 plus 2 plus 3, which will equals to 1 plus 2 plus 3. So I can group my numbers like this, 1 plus 2, and on the right hand side of my equation, I can group the 2 and the 3. And then if I go on to calculate using both mass, which says I should start with what is in the bracket, 1 plus 2 will give me 3 plus this 3 over here is equals to 1 plus 2 plus the 3 gives me 5. 3 plus 3 is equals to 6. 1 plus 5 is equals to 6. So when I add numbers, it doesn't matter how I group them, my answer will still be the same. Again, when I multiply numbers, it doesn't matter how I group them, my answer will still be the same. So again, A multiplied by B, I can group that together and start there, and then I can start with B multiplied by C this side. So I have 1 times 2 multiplied by 3 is equals to 1 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3, and then I can calculate the left hand side and the right hand side, which are grouped differently, and I should be able to get to the same answer. So 1 multiplied by 2 is 2 multiplied by 3 is equals to 1 multiplied by 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6, and 1 times 6 is 6. So even when I multiply numbers, my answer will be the same regardless of how I've grouped them and So that is the associative property of numbers. It is all about the grouping of numbers. It only applies to addition and multiplication and not to division and subtraction. When you're subtracting or dividing numbers, it matters how you group them together. The third and final property of numbers that we are looking at is the distributive property. Now, the distributive property refers to a situation whereby we have a digit outside of the bracket which is distributed into the brackets to the numbers which are either added together or maybe subtracted from one another. So, for example, using variables, we could have A. Now, this is multiplied by B plus C. So we are having a digit outside of the bracket which will have to be distributed to the B and to the C over addition. So if we had to rewrite this, distributing this digit outside of the bracket into the brackets, we would now have A multiplied by B. So A times B plus, which is our operation in this case, A multiplied by C. So we have A multiplied by C. So basically this would also be 1, 2 plus 3 is equals to 1 times 2 plus 1 times 3. Right, so now we have 1 in brackets, we have 2 plus 3. Right, so this is multiplication. This is 2 plus 3, which gives you 5. We have multiplication, that means 1 times 5 is equals to, now we have 1 times 2, which is 2, plus 1 times 3, which is 3, and 1 times 5 now gives us 5, and 2 plus 3 gives us 5. So it doesn't mean every time you get your sum in this manner, you have to convert it to this unless the question is asking you to do so, or vice versa. Right, now again we can have the same thing distributed over subtraction. So now this would be A multiplied by B. Our operation is minus over here, so now we have A multiplied by C. Right, so we have 1, 2 minus 3 is equals to 1 times 2 minus 1 minus 3. Right, so now we can go here and say 1, 2 minus 3 gives us negative 1 is equals to 1 times 2, so we have a multiplication over here. So 1 times 2 is 2 minus 1 times 3 is going to give us 3. Right, positive and a negative gives us positive. 1 times 1 a positive and a negative gives us negative, and 1 times 1 gives us 1. So we have negative 1 is equals to 2 minus 3. So that will give us negative 1 as an answer. So the answer will still remain the same. It's just that we are having this written in 2 different formats. We have come to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share the video. Remember, practice makes improvement.